Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I'm your host, Joe Zollo. It is our second week of our Breakouts and Sleepers, and we are back to the running back position, as we always do: quarterbacks, backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. And this is week 2, folks. You know what it is. Nothing much has happened because it is the month of May in the NFL, and after the schedule release, everything starts to die down just for a little bit. OTAs have begun, but there are some interesting names in the running back class due to a deep rookie class. We're going to end up talking about a lot of them today, including one, Kaleb Johnson. Let's get into it. Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I'm your host, Joe Zollo. As usual, Joshua Hudson joining us, and for the first time I think I've been on stream with him, Mr. Nate. How are you?
I'm wonderful, Joe. We did a start sit last season
You
on
did a
Sunday
start sit, but
morning.
not no punt intended.
Not no pun intended, though. Yeah, here we are.
Yeah.
This is awesome. Thanks, guys, for having me. Wonderful Wednesday night to talk some sleepers.
It's a beautiful Wednesday night. I don't know, where I am in the country. It's sunny, so like that's good for me. I don't know about you guys, but I hope
It's hell in Florida right now. Jesus Christ.
Oh,
it's
I'm
Florida.
sure it is.
Every day pushes 100 degrees. It's ridiculous. I'm over
High
it.
as hell in Colorado, so it's just two opposite sides of the coin when you think about it. It's nice and calm in Indianapolis, Indiana right now. So I'm the best of both worlds. Ladies and gentlemen, there's been some NFL news. The Atlanta Falcons have re-signed their center. That's it. That's really all that's happened in the last week. If you have your shares of Bijan Robinson, congratulations. I think I don't know if he's good, but they re-signed him, so it has to be a good sign. That's all that's happened in the NFL this week, folks. Nothing else crazy. What we are talking about here today, for those who did not see last week's show or are new to the program: running backs, breakouts, and sleepers, and players to avoid, because there are those inside the top 12 especially. And what we're using here are underdog rankings. So first off, if you want to get involved with underdog, you can sign up using our code WOFF, WOFF, first time deposit match up to $1,000 plus a free pick. So you'll be able to use that, and you can be a degenerate just like all of us, not from a gambling standpoint, but from a fact that you too just want to play fantasy football literally all year long and have a lot of fun. So we use underdog because right now the degenerates of best ball are drafting. We don't have accurate redraft rankings, so we are going off of best ball rankings, and you may see some rookies have an inflated value because you have a lot of dynasty players playing right now. So they are more looking at the rookies and favoring guys maybe like a Quinshon Judkins and a Kaleb Johnson, maybe over some veterans like a DeAndre Swift and a Tony Pollard, and we'll get to that later. But we'll first start off with some strategy talk here in general. Nate, I'll start with you. Are you a wait on running backs guy or a load up on running backs guy early?
So I used to be kind of like a varied approach, just depended on the draft, but Kevin Tompkins, I've spent too much time around the man. I've started to lean more zero RB, and I think we're starting to see why that's maybe a better strategy right now because of the way teams they're using multiple backs. A lot of teams are running committees. You have very few guys like Derrick Henry who are really going to be a standalone back in their offense this season. So right now the landscape is, I think if you don't get one of those top like 5 guys, I'm waiting. And if the price is too high for those top 5 guys, I'm also going to wait.
Josh, I know you kind of go back and forth, but I think you're more lean towards the zero RB strategy than you do a heavy RB strategy.
Yeah, I'm definitely not as heavy like you are. I don't really do much of the robust RB builds. I mean, unless everybody just seems to be like zero RB, then I'm going to be like, all right, well, I'll just take the talent. Like, I'm not going to reach on a wide receiver too when I can get a top 3 running back. You know what I mean? But I think like my main strategy is I do like to get at least one running back that I feel confident to really anchor a lineup. Most people in the industry will call that a hero RB strategy. But I think in a lot of your standard redraft leagues where, you're starting 2 running backs, you only have 1 flex spot, I think it's okay, even if you're, you can kind of build these more balanced teams where you take a running back, you take a wide receiver. Because every league is different, right? Like Yahoo, I think is still traditionally 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers that you start, versus a lot of other formats now are 2 and 2 with the 1 flex. So it really just kind of depends on what site you're playing on. That really kind of helps me sort of navigate how I want to prepare for my draft.
If you know me, I almost always take 3 running backs in the first 3 rounds because I'm a crazy person.
Wide receivers be damned.
I'm sorry, but for 5 straight years, I could get Keenan Allen as my wide receiver 1, and I happily lived a great life.
You know what? You can still get Keenan Allen as your wide receiver.
And I still can get Keenan. Yeah, you're damn right I can. You're 100% right I can. But now that person has become DJ Moore, and I'm okay with that. And last year, it was Terry McLaurin. Also okay with that. So I'm a big, if I don't go 1, 2, 3 running back, I'm at least going 2 running backs and then a receiver, whether that be, I'm almost always exclusively taking a running back in the first round. Almost always, unless I feel that like 6 have gone off the board immediately, but it tends to be that people are taking now Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, a lot of receivers early, which means some of those guys, a la a Saquon Barkley, might fall to you at 8 or 9, or hell, might even fall to you in the second round in some 10-team leagues. So I like taking running back early because I think the pool dwindles aggressively as the season goes on, and you can find a wide receiver at any point in time on the waiver wire that can get you 12 points. You can't do that at the running back position. So, but from that sleeper and breakout perspective, because especially if you are playing a 0 RB or a hero RB, you do need some of those guys still on your team. So, Nate, characteristics you look for when you're looking at a sleeper or a potential breakout?
It's paths to volume, plain and simple. And this is at any position. I want to see guys that have a path to actually getting significant or fantasy relevant volume. And that's something that we'll talk about when we get into these running backs. I see guys reaching on players like Shadur Sanders in rookie drafts. It's like, guys, what are you doing? Like, he doesn't have a path to play for 2 to 3 seasons. And I know we're talking dynasty there, but I've also seen people reaching on him in best ball drafts where they're taking him in the last round. He doesn't have a path to production in 2025. Why would you waste a pick on him? That's not a sleeper. I'm thinking guys like Daniel Jones. He could be a guy that I might take late round as a quarterback because he has a path to actually play. If you've got a throwaway pick, back into the draft, you're not going to take a kicker or a defense if you're in one of those leagues. Those are the kinds of guys that I'm willing to take because you don't know. We could come out of camp and Daniel Jones could be a starter. And while we don't love Daniel Jones as an NFL quarterback, the guy can ball in fantasy if they let him run. And Indy won't have a choice if they start him at quarterback. Not to say that that's going to happen, but that's kind of what I'm looking for in these guys.
Josh.
Yeah, for me, it's a lot of the offensive scheme. I mean, you're going to have some schemes where running backs, no matter how talented they are, they're going to see a lot of opportunity simply because the scheme just calls for it, right? Greg Roman offense, Los Angeles Chargers, Arthur Smith offense, Pittsburgh Steelers. You can drop a jag of a a running back into those schemes, and you can probably produce a top 24 running back. So, like, those would be guys like, I don't mind taking dart throws on in the back end of drafts as sort of depth pieces in case the starter gets hurt because I know that I can trust those schemes. Now, I'm going to prioritize somebody like that over maybe the backup with the Cincinnati Bengals, right? They're one of the lowest rushing volume teams. The upside is that the starter typically sees 70% of the running back share. So that's a good thing. But 70% of 400 may not be as good as, say, 50% of 550. Right. So you can always look and see how you want to do the math and that sort of thing. So offensive scheme plays a huge role in that for me. Red zone usage is a big one. When a team gets down in the end zone, are they chucking it to 6'5" tight ends or outside wide receivers, or are they running it right up the gut? That's why I love me some Brian Robinson later in drafts, because I know that Cliff Kingsbury loves to pound the rock in the red zone. Same thing with, if I want to prioritize, like a Saquon Barkley early, because I know that the Eagles tend to run a lot when they're in the red zone. Whether that's going to be to Saquon or Jalen Hurts is up for debate, but at least I know that those guys are going to get a chance to touch the football in short yardage situations. So I look at a lot of those things. And of course, the profile of the running back itself will play into it as well. I mean, if they weren't somebody that could carry a big load in college, probably not going to be able to do it in the NFL, which ultimately limits their ceiling if you're looking at later round targets as sort of like a zero RB build that, if the starter gets hurt and they come in, are they going to get, 60% of the workload in a 3-game stretch, or are they going to ultimately split like a 40-40-20 or, some way, shape or form in that sense, where you need a lot of touchdown volume to buoy a certain week.
Going into now breaking down these running backs into different tiers here. So again, these are underdog rankings. These are half-point PPR, 12-team league drafts. Best ball. Reminder, it is May 28th. So you will see some rookies that are a lot higher than they will be on August 15th. Or if you smartly do your drafts after Labor Day or Labor Day weekend, they're going to be a lot lower than they currently sit right now. So again, these are underdog rankings. Running backs 21 through 36. Here we go. Starting with Najee Harris. Sure, why not? David Montgomery, James Conner, Quinshon Judkins. We'll get to him. Tyrone Tracy Jr., Kaleb Johnson, Aaron Jones, Tony Pollard, Jalen Warren, Ramondre Stevenson, Cam Scatabo, Travis Etienne, Zach Charbonnet, Jordan Mason, Isaiah Pacheco, and Brian Robinson Jr. For those keeping track, that was 3 rookie running backs between 21 and 36. So, based on the qualifications, who do you feel has a realistic chance to come out of this RB or low-end RB2 through RB3 range to potentially finish as a top 12 running back? Nate, we will start with you.
Well, I'm going to go with the one that I think Josh and I both agree on here. Kaleb Johnson in Pittsburgh. Guys, it's an Arthur Smith offense. And yeah, he's going to split carries with Jalen Warren, but we've also seen Jalen Warren be far more involved in the passing game than Kaleb Johnson is ever going to be involved in it. I just like the volume. The idea of Kaleb Johnson in that offense, it kind of makes me drool a little bit at the possibility of how many points he could possibly score. Now, top 12, I think he could be a top 10. Yeah, I think he could be a top 8 running back in this system if Arthur Smith does what we think Arthur Smith is going to do. Of course, there's the worry that he pulls the Tyler Algier, Bijan Robinson bit that he did in Atlanta, and then we see a complete 100% split. But even in that situation, I still think Kaleb Johnson gets the red zone work versus Algier, who is getting the red zone work that season. Josh, what do you think? I mean, you agree with me here.
I do. I love me some Kaleb Johnson. Here's the thing. We know how bad that Iowa Hawkeyes offense was last year. They scored 40 offensive touchdowns. Kaleb Johnson scored 52.5% of them, 21 touchdowns out of 40. That is an astronomical number for anybody in the college football game. So that shows you that he can score touchdowns. Now, I want to go to 2022 when Arthur Smith was the head coach for the Falcons, and they had Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder starting at quarterback for them.
Dogs.
This was pre-Bijan Robinson. Okay. They finished 7-10 that season. Arthur Smith ran the football 55.3% of the time. So no matter if they were losing, he was still running the football. If Aaron Rodgers is not the quarterback, which as of right now of this recording, he is not. The quarterbacks on the Pittsburgh Steelers roster right now, Mason Rudolph, Skylar Thompson, and 6th-round pick Will Howard.
Dogs.
If that doesn't tell you that Arthur Smith is going to run the football, I don't really know what will. So that alone should tell you that Kaleb Johnson is primed for a huge boon. And looking at the workload split that season, Tyler Algier, who was a rookie 5th-round pick, saw 210 rush attempts and finished with over 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
The backup was Cordero Patterson, who had 144 carries for 695 yards. I can very well see Kaleb Johnson having that 1,000-yard season with Jalen Warring having less than 150 carries, which is fine. He's never had more than 150 carries in a season. The difference is Algier only had 3 touchdowns, whereas Cordero Patterson had 8 rushing touchdowns. Those numbers are going to flip, and it would not surprise me one bit if Kaleb Johnson ends up with 10-plus rushing touchdowns, which will elevate that floor. Let's not forget that the 2 teams that threw the football the fewest times last year were the Rams and the Chargers. And Kieran Williams was still a top 10 running back last year. If you give Kaleb Johnson that kind of workload, even without receiving output, he can finish top 10.
What I took from that conversation is that I think Arthur Smith is undervalued because he took Desmond Ridder and Marcus Mariota to 7 and 10, which is a crazy statement when you think about it. The other guys you both have, Nate, you have Aaron Jones and Quinshon Judkins, and then Josh, you have Najee and James Conner. So Nate, we discussed we're discussing Judkins for our Cleveland Browns a look inside that we had just recorded, but give me your thoughts on him, because I took him with the 106 in my rookie draft and feel very confident in Judkins, especially in his rookie year.
Well, I mean, this is similar to what Josh was saying about what's going on in Pittsburgh. Their quarterbacks as of right now are Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, and Shadur Sanders. All right.
There's a Super Bowl champion on that roster and a player's number who's retired in college. So listen, all right. I heard a judgy tone coming from you. All right. I need you to respect
very
the Cleveland
judgy.
Browns quarterback room. All right.
Look,
that's also
Kenny Pickett's hands are smaller than mine.
That's Super Bowl champion Kenny Pickett to you, sir.
Yes. Okay. Joe Flacco's a year younger than me. What is he doing in the league still?
Let me ask you, how many quarterbacks in the AFC North have won a Super Bowl?
Just Kenny Pickett.
2, and they're both on the Cleveland Browns.
That's true. Flacco. God, I want to forget that year.
Is that a coincidence? I don't know. All I'm saying is the Cleveland Browns have the most successful quarterback room in the AFC North. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're not wrong, I guess. I mean, I can't argue with logic and fact.
Exactly.
But what it comes down to for me here with Judkins, they've got Jerome Ford, Dylan Sampson, and Pierre Strong. Those are the other running backs. We already know what Jerome Ford is. If somebody's going to eat into his volume, it'll be Ford. Sampson was drafted, 3 rounds later? So obviously they like Judkins a ton more. He was a workhorse in college. This team is they're going to try and play defense and run the ball. They're going to play a clock game, possession game, because that's all they can do with this quarterback core. Jerry Jeudy, Jamari Thrash, and Cedric Tillman are their wide receivers. This team just doesn't have anything.
All I'm seeing is elite talent across the entire Cleveland Browns roster. All right.
Joe, you got to stop
all
it, man.
Seeing.
And let's not forget, too, the same thing with Arthur Smith. Like Kevin Stefanski in 6 years as a play caller, 5 of those 6 years, he's finished 9th, or he's finished in the top 9 in rush attempts. So, they're going to run the football. It's really just going to be a matter of does Judkins separate himself? Considering the draft capital, it makes sense. You're still going to be very limited from a pass catching perspective. And I feel that the quarterback, or basically this team's not going to throw near as much as they did last year, or really the last 2 years. So Judkins has a clear pathway, again, to over 1,000 yards, 250 plus, maybe even 300 carries if he really gets going, and 1,000 plus yards. And if they're going to score, it's probably going to be on the ground. Kenny Pickett's not a prolific touchdown passer if he ends up starting the most games. They're all going to come on the ground if they're scoring touchdowns. That raises Judkins' floor in that instance.
Quick break from this. We got a question from Spock. Give Sutton for Golden. Here's the background here. He won last year, and the value is Golden, but trying to repeat. So 12-team Superflex PPR, half point tight end premium, ST10. Why am I blanking on what?
Start 10.
Thank you. 4 point per passing touchdown. Okay. Josh Allen, Jordan Love, Sam Darnold. Okay. Jahmyr Gibbs, JT plus his handcuffs, Chuba Hubbard. Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka Nacua, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Cortland Sutton, Trey McBride. He says low activity. Feel he'd be stuck with Golden in 2025. So, I mean, looking at the roster, I guess you don't need Sutton based off
really
of your
don't.
other receiver talent, but I feel Sutton for Golden straight up is not good.
I mean, it's not good for 2024 or 2025, excuse me. Like, Sutton's going to be the more valuable piece this year. You're looking at a 30-year-old wide receiver in Sutton. His value is only going down. Golden, in theory, should be going up as the years go on.
In theory,
correct. But again, this is the game you play in Dynasty, right? Like, you're looking at 2 to 3 years down the road. You're not always looking at for the current season. So yes, as he mentions, he'll be likely stuck with Golden in 2025. But you have Justin Jefferson, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, you have Puka Nacua. Like, those are the three guys that you're building around anyway. And Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, they're going to be the pieces that help you this year. You can basically park Matthew Golden, never have to move him off of your taxi squad until 2026.
Yeah, I mean, the long-term play is to get Golden. I would probably ask for Golden and for Sutton just because of the value of the offense that Sutton is in. And I think you could get like a third-round pick on top of Golden back. But yeah, I'd make the move. It's risky. Look at the wide receiver room in Green Bay. Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden, Dobbs, and you've got Savion Williams and Dontavian Wicks. But I do think he can separate himself maybe towards the end of this season. He becomes a really valuable piece in 26.
Barely saying, is there any reason to believe Matthew Golden will make it as a true wide receiver one on the Packers based on what we know now? No.
I think this is where you just have to trust the draft capital. Like, I wasn't,
do you?
I'm still not the biggest Matthew Golden fan. I felt like, for somebody that ran a 4.29 40, it definitely does not show up on tape. But there are people that scout players for a living that see him a lot differently. And I think when you can make a deal to move off of a 30-year-old wide receiver to take a chance, I'm okay with that. And Nate, what you said, like getting an extra third-round pick, never hurts to ask that.
Yeah. Josh, what if I remember what I say about guys that run fast in the combine?
Oh, I know.
Yeah. So let's just
Xavier Worthy had a pretty solid end of the season. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no. Let's just recap though. Wide receiver Jacoby Ford.
Mm-hmm.
Wide receiver JJ Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
Wide receiver Tyrone Calico.
Okay.
Who?
Show me one that was a first-round pick though. Outside of
Marquise Goodwin.
Not a first-round pick.
Jerome Mathis. I'm just reading the guys. Chris Johnson. John Ross. Top 10 pick. So all I'm saying is speed doesn't give you anything when you can't play the game of football at an NFL level. So
I don't disagree. And I feel like for everything that he could have and should have done in college,
Ruggs, thank you for the assist.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of cases where things go right, things go wrong, etc. Like I'm not saying that. I think the biggest hindrance to Matthew Golden is less talent and more that this offense just doesn't feature a wide receiver where they target him 7-8 times a game. Like, they spread the football around a ton. But this team also runs a lot of 12 personnel, 21 personnel, where there's only 2 wide receivers on the field. That automatically pulls Jaden Reed off the field. Matthew Golden's going to be somebody that stays on the field. So at least there's opportunity from that perspective for a Matthew Golden, rise. But again, he's got to prove it. Yep. But being that he was a first-round pick, he's going to have every opportunity to prove it.
I'm keeping Sutton. I don't care that he's 30. You're trying to win. You want to win this year? You want to win money this year? Cortland Sutton's going to win you money. But
again, looking at this wide receiver core, how many games is Cortland Sutton starting for you? He's not starting for you at all.
All right. Well, he's there. Justin Jefferson, injury history. Puka Nacua, injury history. All I'm saying, Tyreek Hill, bad season last year. All I'm saying, Cortland Sutton is not a dead asset on this team.
Not saying he's a dead asset.
Gibbs, JT. I'm trying to count how many people here. McBride, Jetta, ARSB, Puka, Tyreek, Adams. I mean, everybody outside of the handcuffs, Sam Darnold and Cortland Sutton are starters on his team right now. Cortland Sutton as your rotational piece off the bench sounds really fun to me. That's all I'm saying. This motherfucker gets to see the Raiders secondary twice a year? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Are you kidding me? He gets to see the Chargers cornerbacks twice a year? Thank you. Yeah. I will happily take that. He gets to see Incy Wincy Teeny Trent McDuffie twice a year? Thank you. Like, Cortland Sutton owned the AFC West last year. He sees him 6 times.
Finally, for the first time.
He had a fucking quarterback.
I know, it's true.
He had a quarterback.
Finally.
Oh, he had a quarterback. I wish. I'm a huge Cortland Sutton guy, and I wish he would have produced.
I love Cortland Sutton too.
But he
had. Don't interpret this as me saying Cortland Sutton sucks, so move him. Like, that's not.
He had absolute garbage at quarterback for most of his career, which sucks because he's so good. But I would keep Sutton in this instance. All right, let's move into the sleeper category of these running backs. This is considered 37 to 48. So guys that, in theory, if you're playing in a traditional 2 backs, 2 receivers, 1 flex, or even in the Yahoo 2 backs, 3 receivers, these guys are coming off your bench. Plain and simple, these are going to be guys that just after a while, they're going to come off your bench. Barely also brings up, remember when Nathaniel Hackett was Cortland Sutton's head coach. So yeah, not even just the quarterback situation, but the fact he had Nathaniel Hackett as the fucking head coach.
That was bad. That was really bad.
Bad? That's putting it nicely.
Look, I live in Denver. It was brutal. All right. It was brutal.
There you go. It was brutal. 37 through 48, again, according to Underdog. DeAndre Swift. Absolutely criminal that he's ranked 37 right now. We'll get to that. Bayshall Tutton. Still don't know how to say his name. It's cool, though. Tootin? Even better.
Tootin.
Love it. Awesome. Rookie running back for the Jaguars, for those that don't know, like myself, until I saw the logo next to his name 24 hours ago. Tank Bigsby, Dylan Sampson, Jerome Ford. Noticing a theme of a lot of guys on the same teams in these areas because we don't really know what it's going to look like. Tajay Spears, Trey Benson, Isaac Garendo, DJ Giddens, Javonte Williams, RJ Harvey, and rounding it out at 48 is Ray Davis. Swift and Ford are the only 2 running backs in this tier who have finished inside the top 20 at running back at some point in the last 3 seasons. And then the question overall and the theme here is, who do you think has the best chance of finishing inside the top 20? And I'll start with Josh because, Nate, you bring up that he is your honorable mention. Josh, you have RJ Harvey from the aforementioned Denver Broncos.
Yeah, I initially had Swift, and I was like looking at this list, and I'm like, honestly, there's literally 2. It's Swift or Harvey. So we'll see which one Nate picks. I figured he would take Harvey, being a Denver person, living in Denver, but he went Swift. So I said, all right, I'll pivot to Harvey. But the long and short of it is, Harvey is one of the few guys in this like grouping that actually has a chance to see over 50% of the running back workload. And that alone has the capability to elevate one's floor. Harvey was handpicked by Sean Payton. This is why Harvey was getting boosted into the first round of rookie drafts. People starve for running backs that have a chance at heavy workloads. Why some people might be shying away from Harvey is the fact that he's a 24-year-old rookie. Not always the best thing when you're talking about running backs, but, middle age. Cool. Sure. Is what it is. But he's going to have a chance to be the lead rusher and the lead receiver. And the Broncos led the NFL last year in targets to the running back position with over 26% target share. So, again, it just elevates their floor. Like we talked about how, Jaleel McLaughlin will have a chance to kind of take some of that passing down work. He was the preferred option in this, Broncos offense last year. Javonte Williams had 70 targets last year. And most people are just like, there's no fucking way. Jaleel McLaughlin only had 37 because he can't pass block. So why is he on the field on passing downs? right? RJ Harvey can pass block. He's a little bit bigger. He runs bigger than he is. And Audric Estime did next to nothing to actually show that he can handle first and second down work. So the keys are going to be handed to RJ Harvey. It's just a matter of, can he take advantage? Because the Broncos, per PFF, had the second best offensive line last year. And that's saying something. There's every reason to think that he can do well. I have him projected for 230 touches. He's currently my RB25. That can very easily shoot up.
Oh, Josh, he could be a top 15 running back in this offense.
100% he can be.
The thing is, and I love what you said about Harvey, where Javonte Williams had 70 targets. Harvey can pass block. Harvey can catch. Harvey can run between the tackles. He's like Alvin Kamara Jr. in a Sean Payton offense. Now, he's not Alvin Kamara, but he does a lot of the same similar things. That's what we want to see in this offense. Sean Payton's been looking for that guy. He tried it with Jaleel McLaughlin. He tried it with Audric Estime. It didn't work. Estime is a guy who's probably going to be more of a change of pace, in my opinion, in this Broncos offense. Harvey's a phenomenal back. Second round draft capital for a Sean Payton running back's pretty good. I'd see him getting 50 to 60 to maybe even 65% of the work in that backfield, especially if he proves adept at pass blocking at the NFL level. By the end of the season, he'll be taking the majority of the snaps in that backfield. So I love this call on Harvey, Josh.
And I feel for most people currently, one could argue the best value at running back if you're drafting right now is DeAndre Swift. So, Nate, he's just on the cusp here at 37 in terms of not being a flex player, but it still feels ridiculously low for a guy that is on a team that did, when I say nothing to threaten his job, they actually did a negative amount to threaten DeAndre Swift's job.
Well, it's funny because I think a lot of people, this is coming from his previous experience with Ben Johnson when he was in Detroit. Ben Johnson didn't like it. Ben Johnson jettisoned him off to Philly. Now he's in Chicago. I included, I assumed that DeAndre Swift wouldn't still be on this roster at this point. I thought they'd move him during the draft, release him, something. They didn't. And it's DeAndre Swift and Quinshon Judkins. Realistically, those are the two guys who are going to get carries in this offense. I don't think that anybody trusts Quinshon Judkins enough, and I hate to say this, and it's a good thing Jamie got off the stream to go do his podcast, because as much as I love Quinshon Judkins, I really do, I don't think he's the guy who can really handle a significant workload in an NFL offense. That leaves us with DeAndre Swift, and based on what he did last year, he was pretty good when he was healthy. He's always pretty good when he's healthy. Ben Johnson's probably the guy who can get the most out of him. This could end up being one of DeAndre Swift's best seasons in the NFL, is the way I'm looking at it. And to have him at 37 is ridiculous. That is way too low. It's insane. He has to be a top 24 back.
Extremely low. And Gabriel brings up Bears adding Chubb would be a good fit there. And that could be the David Montgomery to the Jahmyr Gibbs punch. Sure. Chubb is just... I mean, he might be toast. He might be cooked at this point. I don't want Nick Chubb to be cooked, because you could just argue as a pure running back, it was probably Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb when Nick Chubb was healthy, just as a straight pure running back. The guy averaged almost 6 yards a carry. That's insane. That's his like career stat, is he almost averaged 6 yards a carry. That's absurd at any point in time in the NFL.
And I think that's the thing that people are really kind of missing when it comes to, the Bears might still add a running back. If they add a running back, to me, it's not going to affect DeAndre Swift. It's going to affect Quinshon Judkins. DeAndre Swift has been a lead back the last 2 years. And for all the injury history that he had early in his career where he couldn't stay healthy, the last 2 years, he's played 17 games each season. He's gotten better as he's aged. And the last time that Swift was in a Ben Johnson offense, he saw 70 targets. So, he can carry 225, 230 times, but he could also see 70 targets because they're going to throw the ball to the running back. So, I don't think that we're going to see, the type of Jahmyr Gibbs kind of receiving work for DeAndre Swift. but it's not out of the realm of possibilities. The biggest problem has been Swift hasn't scored touchdowns the last couple of years. And that's really what's kind of held him back from being a big-time fantasy asset. The Bears have done wonders improving that offensive line this offseason. So they should be a top 10 offensive line in the NFL. That's only going to make DeAndre Swift better. His rushing numbers when he was in Philadelphia, they were solid. They were solid. So I think he's going to be a lot closer to 2023 DeAndre Swift than 2024 DeAndre Swift, and that's good for fantasy.
Yep.
And again, just thinking of the free agents because Barely brings it up, J.K. Dobbins would be the guy that would threaten DeAndre Swift because their play
I don't think he would.
Well, look, but again, do I think it does? No. But if you're bringing in Nick Chubb, he threatens Roschon more than DeAndre Swift because they play more of a similar play style, even though Johnson is a pretty good receiving back. J.K. Dobbins plays more of a DeAndre Swift role. They're not the same back. DeAndre Swift is light years better than J.K. Dobbins, but he plays more of that role than he would a bruiser into the end zone like a Nick Chubb or a bigger bodied Roschon Johnson would. That's my only
I just don't see a point in bringing in retread backs coming off.
No, zero. I think the only reason you bring in Nick Chubb, is to like, one, you maybe as a rotational piece, but also, I don't know, help mentor the young guys that you have on the team. You have a lot of young guys on the team. So help mentor because he's obviously been around the block with some really bad teams in Cleveland. So he knows a thing or two. That might be the only reason. I would be surprised if Nick Chubb doesn't have a job at some point this season. But yeah, I think their backfield's pretty set. There's nobody they can really add or go and get that's going to make them better in the backfield. And where I'm going to bring up is like, I don't think Travis Etienne's a Jaguar halfway through the season. He's in the final year of his contract. He's going to be 27. I don't think that the Jaguars re-sign him unless Trevor Lawrence is like, unless he puts his foot down because he's the franchise quarterback and says, I want my guy. But this, I've looked him up for 5 seconds, but this Bashal Tootin kid, I don't get sure. I guarantee you I have a lot of this guy on my team as like my 5th running back come the start of the season.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, Tank Bigsby kind of took over that, quote, lead back role. And last year, ETN, they kind of shifted into more of, a pass catching role. You bring in Tootin, who can kind of do a little bit of both and has 4.32 speed. Like, this is Liam Cohen's guy. So maybe he wants to see him, maybe he ends up having this kind of like Bucky Irving type lift in this Jaguars pecking order because
he's insanely athletic.
Like, yeah, he absolutely is. He did a lot of good things at Virginia
40
Tech.
and a half inch vertical jump.
Yeah, he's extremely athletic. Yeah. Very athletic. So it's really just going to be a matter of who takes to Liam Cohen's system quickest. Mm-hmm. And those are going to be the guys that ultimately see the most work. But when you're looking at ADPs, especially in that Jaguars backfield, I mean, they're all so grouped together.
Yeah.
Pick the one you like the best, or just wait and take the guy that's going the furthest down because he represents the best value.
Yeah, I don't think it is anything for you for the first like half of the season, but I think that is a guy that could play well later on in the year because I don't think ETN's a Jaguar by week 9 or week 8, whenever the trade deadline is. Another one from Spock. This one is fun because there's a lot of guys in here that I like. Amon-Ra St. Brown. This is the same team, same setup, same format. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Cortland Sutton, or Ladd McConkey and Rashee Rice. Which side of that argument do you want, Nate?
I'm going to go with the Ladd Rice side. I think both of their upside, not only like for 2025, but long term is going to be a little bit higher in total. You've got Sutton, who's a little bit older, and ARSB, was he 27? I think 27, 28. So he's kind of inching up there.
He's already on his second contract.
Yeah, he's on his second contract. So, and we know what Ladd McConkey is. We know what Rashee Rice can be if he can stay healthy. McConkey's a dog. I fell in love with him in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, watching him run cone drills of all things. Like, the guy is just a madman.
Yeah, Josh.
Yeah. So give me that side
Never
of it.
said he couldn't run routes.
I want McConkey. I want the McConkey Rice side. It's just flat out better deal long term and for 2025.
So Monra's 25. He'll be 26 in October. Like he's still
okay.
young.
Sorry. Yeah, he's still young, but which side would you take, Josh?
Lad McConkey.
I mean, you're getting two younger pieces with Ladd and Rice. Sutton obviously being older. I mean, it's hard to say trade Amon-Ra.
For these guys,
obviously we haven't seen the best of Ladd McConkey, but also too,
you haven't seen the best of Rashee Rice.
And again, we haven't seen the best of Rashee Rice. Agreed. The one thing that I think that you can trust with Amon-Ra more than say Ladd is the offense is going to throw the football more. Regardless of whether Ladd McConkey sees a 27-28% target share, you're likely not seeing that passing offense at more than 520 pass attempts. So that instantly is going to keep the floor lower. Whereas Amon-Ra can see 27-28% of 600 plus targets, right? That's going to keep him in that 140, 150 target range, which we've seen him in pretty consistently over the last 3 years. So that lends itself to more opportunity, which is typically why Amon-Ra continually finishes as a top 7 wide receiver. Whereas with Ladd, because of the lower target share, you need an insanely high yards per reception, and you need very high touchdown volume. And in a run-heavy offense, passing touchdowns are at a lower volume there. So that's why I would favor Amon-Ra there. But I think with Rice, to me, that's the trump card. So I'm okay taking the Ladd Rice side, and I think it's a pretty fair trade. But again, it would not I'm fine if you wanted to hang on to Amon-Ra. It's pick your poison there, honestly.
He said he asked for ARSB in his late first, which would be his only pick in 2026, which I don't think is the end of the world.
I don't think it is either. I mean, Nate, you can speak to this a lot better than I can, but a lot of people are saying the 2026 class is pretty
garbage.
It's not great. I would have no problem getting rid of that first round from next year.
So there you go. Either way, we're chilling. Either way, we're looking good.
Yeah, you're going to get good production on both sides of this. So.
Yeah. What do you guys think the rushing percentage in Pittsburgh looks like? Warren and Kaleb Johnson, Najee had a lot of carries. So yeah, we talked a little bit about Kaleb Johnson earlier. Nate, I guess I don't know if you've done projections or anything like that, but where you see this split kind of coming from in this backfield.
So I feel like it's going to be, at least to start the season, I think we're looking at about 50-50. I think Kaleb Johnson ends up getting about 60% of that production at some point during the season. But I don't know if I care that much because Pittsburgh ran the ball 51.69% of plays last season. They're going to just run the ball, and they're going to run the ball more. Like we talked about earlier with the quarterback situation not being great. You got Mason Rudolph, who they're probably going to roll out. They're just going to run the ball. Unless they go get Kirk Cousins. I mean, that is a possibility. I've heard some grumbling on CBS and NFL Network about the possibility of Pittsburgh trying to attain Kirk Cousins. But regardless, Pittsburgh's going to run the ball a ton. That's just what I see. And I think both of these guys are more than fantasy viable.
Yeah, so the way that I have the splits currently in my projections, I went 46.3% of the rush share to Kaleb Johnson, 25% to Jaylen Warren, and about 10.4% to Kenneth Gainwell. You could very easily convince me that Kaleb Johnson sees over 50%. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. But where that ultimately lines up in terms of total carries, Kaleb Johnson 238, Jaylen Warren 129. Which for Jaylen Warren kind of falls right around his career high, so to speak, or at least close to it. I mean, we talked a little bit earlier in the show about, the likelihood of how Kaleb Johnson could finish as a top 12 back. And when you look at the 2022 Atlanta Falcons and how they split between Tyler Algier and Cordero Patterson, that's a pretty similar split, just in terms of volume for each one, but it's ultimately going to boil down to rushing touchdowns, right? I have them currently scoring 16 rushing touchdowns, and I have Johnson scoring 9 of those. So, I mean, you could very easily take some from the 20 passing touchdowns that I gave Pittsburgh and move that towards the rushing side. And that's going to elevate Kaleb Johnson even more.
Less carries and more passing volume for Jaylen Warren is going to be better for him. So it's going to...
Yeah, and I have Jaylen Warren with 60 targets, and I only have Kaleb Johnson with 10.
Yeah, it's Jaylen Warren is going to... Jaylen Warren's... You're going to be in the backfield and be like, why the hell is Jaylen Warren not back there? And you have him in your starting lineup. It's fine because the guy's still going to have 15, 16 points a game because he's going to get those receptions. And when he does get his opportunities, we saw it a lot with Najee last year, 2 seasons ago. He would hit the big play because he has that speed. So Jaylen Warren, like Kaleb Johnson's going to wear down a defense. Jaylen Warren's going to hit the big play. And I think we'll see that a lot from him. All right. Finishing up. 45 minutes in. We got landmines. Saquon Barkley, biggest landmine in them all. Going to have huge regression. 600 yards of regression, folks. You may ask, Joe, that still puts him at 1,500. Yes, it does.
Actually,
yes, it does.
1,400.
Oh, I thought he had 2,100 yards. Well, you know what? I don't care. That's fine. I don't care. With 1,400 yards. So he's horrible. He shouldn't even be inside the top 10. Leave him. I'll take him in the 3rd round, guy. Leave him for me. You don't need to be taking Saquon Barkley that early. But the top 20 running backs in best ball right now. Shocking. It's the guy who should have broken the NFL record. Saquon Barkley is the number 1 guy. Bijan Robinson at 2, Jahmyr Gibbs at 3. Ashton Jeanty, hello, rookie, number 4. Over Mr. Achilles, Christian McCaffrey. 6, Derrick Henry, Devon Achane, Jonathan Taylor, Bucky Irving, and then Josh Jacobs rounds out the top 10. To 11, Kieran Williams, Breece Hall, Omarion Hampton at 13. Once again, folks, these rookies are just a tiny bit inflated. I don't think Omarion Hampton should be over guys such as Chase Brown and James Cook at 14 and 15. Joe Mixon at 16. TreVeyon Henderson at 17. Sure. Chuba Hubbard at 18. Kenneth Walker III and Alvin Kamara rounds out the top 20. Last year, we all know, Christian McCaffrey was the consensus 101. Kyle Shanahan puts his Achilles files in the hidden folder and hides it from us for 10 weeks. So that really hurt everybody on the Christian McCaffrey front. Unless you were like me and drafted Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, and Joe Mixon, and then you were just A-okay and you were feeling good. But it wasn't great. It wasn't a fun ride. And now you may be thinking to yourself, wow, there seems like a lot of rookies that are inflated here. And the question is, who do you trust the least to finish as a top 20 running back? And unsurprisingly, 2 of the 3 rookies that were mentioned, and you guessed it, one of them isn't Ashton Jeanty. They both made Nate and Josh's bullet points. So, Nate, we're going to start with you because I'm a Patriots fan, and I, too, don't understand this TreVeyon Henderson hype. We have barely even gotten to OTAs.
I think the idea is, hey, it's TreVeyon Henderson. He was so good at Ohio State, and then he paired with Judkins so they could win a national championship, blah, 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 whatever. Henderson's a great back. Don't get me wrong. Bright future in this league. The problem is this is a Josh McDaniels offense. And guys, they didn't move Ramondre Stevenson anywhere. Guy's been a bell cow for 4 seasons. What's going to change? He's healthy. As long as he's healthy, this is a complete split backfield. I don't see TreVeyon Henderson getting more than maybe like 35 to 40% of the work in season 1. It's Josh McDaniels. This New England offense has never featured one back solely under McDaniels. If you want to go back, Corey Dillon, that was before Josh McDaniels. That was the last time they featured one back. And that was, Joe was like 3 when that happened.
I remember the Corey Dillon. I love Corey Dillon. That was great.
Oh,
because then he was supplanted by Lawrence Maroney, and I wanted to kill myself. So that's what Lawrence Maroney's shining moment. Remember those NFL.com fantasy football files commercials? Arguably some of the greatest commercials. Oh my God, who was why can't I think the tight end for the Redskins? Why can't I think of his name? Chris Cooley. I want to say Chris Conti. I'm like, that's not right. Chris Cooley.
Chris Cooley.
Punches through the wooden wall and catches the ball. Mason Crosby hitting balls off the State House bell. And what did Lawrence Maroney do? He dove through a Ford F-150 through both windows and dove through it. I'm like, now, so I don't know if that's real. I choose to believe it's real, and I think it was, but it was crazy. That's Lawrence Maroney's defining moment. TreVeyon Henderson, Nate, you bring up a great point, because yes, I'm a Patriots fan. I've seen this played out so many times. In a Josh McDaniels system, there is never one running back. Now, I will tell you, there is one running back that is favored more in the run game. That is not going to be TreVeyon Henderson.
Nope.
I can almost guarantee
He'll be favored in the passing game.
100%.
Yes, for sure.
And I see him more in a James White role. But
I think he can do. I think that, and that's kind of how I did my projections. I did my projections with Henderson getting much more of the receiving work, whereas Stevenson getting more of the rushing work. But I think where he can, in a way, one up James White is that he can handle closer to 150 carries, whereas James White was never seeing above 100 carries.
I agree with that. Yeah,
Henderson will be the preferred third down back because he is an elite pass blocker. And
yes,
Ramondre Stevenson cannot hold on to the football.
100%. I agree with that. And that's the thing is you see, so if we remember, LeGarrette Blount's big season with the Patriots, 1,200 yards, 18 touchdowns. You want to know the guy who was behind him? Dion Lewis, who had 283. And he only played in 7 games, but he had 283 rushing yards, and he only had 94 receiving yards. The next year, LeGarrette Blount goes to Philadelphia, drops down 766, 2 touchdowns. You want to know what happens to Dion Lewis? He's your favorite stat running back in fantasy football. 896 yards, 6 touchdowns, 214 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air. Was he killing you? Like, was he killing you if you played against him? No. But that's what this New England offense does. Dion Lewis played 2 years in New England before he got a true shot at that starting gig and actually seeing a lot more time at the running back position. TreVeyon Henderson is not going to get the first crack at this. It is going to be Ramondre Stevenson. And it is Ramondre Stevenson's backfield, and McDaniels is a lot more lenient on guys letting the football go than a Bill Belichick or a Gerard Mayo kind of not really was. Henderson's going to need a little bit of time. You will see him in the passing game. He's a better receiver than Ramondre Stevenson. But Stevenson also isn't a slouch in the receiving game.
I was going to say he had 1 year over 60 targets, I believe.
Because that was his, I believe, his rookie season.
Yeah, I think
where he was a rookie and he saw more of the passing work because he was a rookie. And then what happened in year 2? Explosion year, because it was his backfield. That is going to happen with TreVeyon Henderson. So year 1 is not the year. Year 2 is going to be the year. So yes, he's hot.
Just curious, Nate, where do you have him in your rankings?
Let me pull that up here. I've got him way back. Let's see here.
And while Nate, while you're pulling it up, just to show why this works, Ramondre Stevenson, 600 yards, 5 touchdowns his rookie season. Next year, 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns, and then he had 69 catches for a touchdown.
So I've got Henderson at 29. I've got Stevenson at 38.
Okay, so I have Henderson at 22 and Stevenson at 39. So
yep. So we're sort of close.
Yeah, I mean, right now I have Henderson at 148 carries. Maybe that's a little high on the projection side.
I don't think it is.
At 186.
I don't think it is. So in Ramondre Stevenson's rookie year, Damian Harris was the lead back, 929 rushing yards, 15 touchdowns on 202 attempts. Ramondre Stevenson, 133 attempts, 600 yards. Other guys in that backfield, Brandon Bolden, who was a Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels staple in that offense.
Yeah, he was a special teams guy, though.
Special teams guy. And remember...
Beautiful hair.
I love Brandon Bolden. And remember, who drafted Ramondre Stevenson? Do you remember? Josh McDaniels was in that offense.
That was McDaniels, yeah.
That was McDaniels. Yep. So McDaniels drafted Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah, I think people are just really sort of like they're digging their heels in on second round draft capital.
Yeah.
And just letting and it's the same thing with Omarion Hampton, which we'll talk about here in a bit. Like they're digging in on the draft capital side of things and saying this team told us they value them. And that's great. that doesn't mean that they don't still have to earn these roles. And when you look at traditional teams like the Patriots, rookies have to earn these roles. Now, I do think Henderson will earn a role very quickly. As I mentioned, he will be a third down presence because he's an elite pass blocker, but he still has to earn carries because he has two veterans ahead of him there, Antonio Gibson, Ramondre Stevenson, and Stevenson was drafted by McDaniels, just like you said, Joe. Stevenson can very easily still see 200 carries in this offense.
Forgot we had Antonio Gibson. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
What a guy.
He should retire, but he just won't.
What a guy. What a guy.
guy.
Well, Josh, you have another rookie. Goes by the name Omarion Hampton.
Yeah.
Pretty cool name, if you ask me.
Oh, I love his name.
Not a great spot where he currently sits in terms of value.
Yeah, I think that, and this is why I had Najee as one of my breakouts, which again, it's kind of a strange way to put it because we've already seen him break out, but just kind of based on where he's being drafted. Like we've seen Najee Harris be a top 3 running back in the NFL in fantasy. Like we've seen him produce. We've seen this Greg Roman offense that the Chargers deploy be phenomenal when it comes to, running back production. And Omarion Hampton could very easily end up coming in and getting a large piece of the pie. He was a first-round pick. But again, and to me, the biggest difference between Ashton Genty and Omarion Hampton with where they landed.
Talent.
Well, talent, yes. But Raheem Mostert is not stopping Ashton Genty from getting carries.
You don't know that.
No, he's not doing it.
You don't know that.
Najee Harris can stop Omarion Hampton from getting carries. Like my comp for Omarion Hampton coming in was a faster version of Najee Harris. The problem is that you don't see the speed from Omarion Hampton until he actually hits a hole. And his vision is not good, in my opinion. And the Chargers' offensive line is not good either. They were bottom 10 in the league last year in offensive line ranking. And the only thing that they did to improve was sign Mekhi Becton, which great. You put a 370 pounder in the middle of in the interior of your offensive line. That's awesome. But now you take him away from Jeff Stoutland. I have questions. The same thing happened with Isaac Samalu when Pittsburgh signed him away from Philly. He hasn't been all that great since he got
there. He also needs to stay healthy. That's a big.
Well, and that's the other side. He stayed healthy in Philly. It's not a guarantee here in Los Angeles, but barely mentions in the chat like he had Henderson as his RB4. Henderson was my RB2 pre-draft. Hampton was my RB4. So like I wasn't as high on Hampton as many others were coming into this. Like he was very productive at UNC. I get that. That's awesome. He can do everything. But I don't think he's exceptional at any one thing. And he's not going to catch a ton of passes in this Chargers offense. I mentioned earlier in the show, 55 targets was all the Chargers gave to running backs last year. That was tied for 31st with the Rams last year. The two lowest teams in terms of targeting the running back position. So his floor is gone. So he basically needs to have a Kieran Williams type season. And I brought Kieran Williams up earlier in the show when I talked about, Judkins and Kaleb Johnson. So why would I spend a top 13 pick on Omarion Hampton when his ceiling is literally the same as Quinshon Judkins and Kaleb Johnson, who I can get 5-6 rounds later? Yeah, it does not make any sense.
Well, I want to thank you for opening my eyes that Raheem Mostert signed with the Raiders. That I did not didn't see that. That's crazy.
So you weren't there for Raheem Mostert hype week then before they drafted Johnson.
Here's the thing, Nate. So
no, we're there for Sincere McCormick hype week.
No. Listen, here's two things here. One, this show we're big Jeff Wilson fans, not for the fact that we ourselves like Jeff Wilson. It's for the fact that my brother comes on and he had Jeff Wilson on his fantasy team, but it was when it was Jeff Wilson's season and he had that 5-week stretch where he was the RB1 in fantasy football. So he holds on to that Jeff Wilson season hype all the time. So anytime Jeff Wilson even has a sniff at a starting spot that week, Jeff Wilson season. So we all hated Raheem Mostert for the reason that we wanted it to be Jeff Wilson season. That's number one. Number two, remember when people liked Zamir White
No,
No,
that happened.
here's the thing, Nate. I never did. Okay. I never liked Zamir White. Last year, I draft heavy running back. So Zamir White was my 5th running back. It didn't matter at that point to me. But we had one, I think it was Iowa Mike was big on Zamir White last year.
Maybe.
And I could be quoting that wrong, but I remember him saying a lot about
I do
Zamir
feel like
White.
a lot of zero RB people were targeting.
We're huge on Zamir White. They're like, oh, look at the last 3 games. And I was like,
running back, and
I was like, he had 26 carries for 118 yards. That's not good.
No, it's not great.
No,
like
the workload was great, but
workload.
You couldn't do shit with. We talked about last year when Ryan and I were doing the waiver wire show, and when Zamir White started really slow out of the gate, they got Carolina. I think it was like week 3 or week 4, and we basically said, look, if Zamir White can't do it against Carolina, you can drop him, plain and simple. He didn't do shit against Carolina. We all said drop
20
him.
yards.
But like that was our benchmark for every running back when you're talking waiver wires or anything like that. Like if you cannot run on Carolina, who allows over 6 yards per carry, if you can't do it against Carolina, they do not belong on your rosters, plain and simple.
All I know is my boy from the University of New Hampshire, Dylan Lobb, is getting disrespected in this backfield. Okay.
I love Dylan Lobb.
Yeah.
Love him.
So do I.
Love him.
Yeah. University of New Hampshire Wildcat, baby. We're all in this together. All for one. What time is it? Dylan Lobb time. I need Pete Carroll to unlock that box.
He's a hell of a lot better than Zamir White.
Listen, if Pete Carroll can play Christine Michael and Thomas Rawls, he can play Dylan Lobb. All right? He can do that. The only reason I remember those names is because I am playing Madden 18, because every Madden after that is a pile of shit. And I am just shocked at the names that are popping up. And Thomas Rawls and Christine Michael are 2 names that I laughed at. I was like, oh my God, they were relevant in 2018.
Once upon a time.
Once upon a time. Richard Matthews. Remember that name? That was a crazy name that I forgot existed. Unbelievable. Go back, play Madden like 10 years ago. Just unlock some memories of these. Also, was Alvin Kamara's rookie year is rated 78. I'm like, that's wrong. It's awesome. It's great. So I can't wait to go back to Madden 26 in 10 years and see Dylan Lobb rated as a 62 and know that people were wrong.
Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer, Dylan Lobb.
Well, let's get him on the field first. I did drop him from my taxi squad, and that hurt me. I'm not going to lie to you. It hurt me. But, you know, we can only hold on to emotional connection so much. Like after 3 years, I finally dropped John Mechie.
Laviska Shenault for me.
Okay, that's tough. That one's a tough. I was never on the list. I did have James Prochet for like 3 seasons, so that one was that was a lot. But hey, where do you go to school, Josh? Where do you go to school? SMU, wide receiver university, baby. And you can't tell me otherwise. You simply can't tell me otherwise. Anybody want to tell me the 3rd string left tackle for the Raiders? It's an awesome name. Ayadezi Gottlieb. Sure.
Ooh.
The blackest first name and the whitest last name. I think Doug Gottlieb. And I'm like, wow.
That's what I thought too.
Yes. Ugly white guy. Like, that's what I thought. But then Ayadezi is like, that's sick.
Yeah.
So.
I love it.
Magic, thanks for breaking up this horrible conversation. This is actually a very good question. Breece Hall or Chase Brown in redraft? Obviously, with what we know now and where we're at in May. But Breece Hall or Chase Brown in redraft? Nate.
Chase Brown. 100%. I don't trust Breece Hall in this offense with Justin Fields. Fields is going to sap running work from him. He's going to sap red zone work from him. Fields doesn't throw to running back, so forget about the PPR value. I just feel like this is all bad for Breece Hall.
Not that he doesn't throw. He physically can't throw to a running
exactly.
back.
I was trying to be nice, all right?
He doesn't possess the skill and touch to throw a flat route. Josh.
In my RB tiers article, which is you can find that on the website, clubfantasyffl.com. I do have Chase Brown I think 2 tiers above Breece Hall, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
It's not because I don't like Breece Hall. All right. I do like Breece. The problem is, for a lot of the things that Nate just said, there's so many factors working against him, right?
Yeah.
They've talked about running a full committee, right? Using all 3 backs, Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis. Yes, they have. So that right there limits the ceiling. And then you factor in another, quote, running back in the fact that Justin Fields is likely going to have 130 plus rush attempts. So you're losing a pretty large piece of the pie with Breece Hall, which means he has to be ultra efficient when the Jets' offensive line is pretty mid. And on top of that, he's not getting passing work because Justin Fields runs the football instead of dumps it off to running backs. So whereas in years past, we could count on Breece Hall to effectively be the, quote, wide receiver 2 in this offense, he's not going to be that this year. That likely falls on the tight end, or maybe they find a way to upgrade over Allen Lazard for that too, or they just throw the football to Garrett Wilson 35% of the time.
That'd be great.
There's so many different things working against Breece Hall. With Chase Brown, you can look at all of the metrics that tell you that he can't handle a full workload, that, you know, he fades with more work, all these different things. Maybe they work in a second back, whatever. The simple fact is, the Bengals offense, if they have one back that can do it, even if he's only getting 3.7 yards per carry, they're going to give him the football, and he's going to have every opportunity to be a full workload. That's Chase Brown, so I have zero issue going Chase Brown.
Chase Brown stan. I said from the beginning last year that Chase Brown will be the starter on the Cincinnati Bengals by week 8, and he was that way before that. So Magic
Actually,
brings
I think
up,
it was right around week 8. It was like 7 or 8 when Zach Moss
yeah,
got
because
hurt.
Zach Moss is a dog shit running back. Everyone's like, oh, Zach Moss is there. Let's draft him. No. I took Chase Brown much later and was much happier than you. And then he brings up now, because we're all obviously high on Chase Brown and Kieran Williams. Nate.
Kieran.
Josh.
I mean, touchdown upside is definitely Kieran Williams. I believe I have Kieran a little lower. Yeah, I have Chase Brown at 10, Kieran Williams at 14. Again, I'll just go to the passing down where the Rams do not throw to the running back anymore. And that's going to, that limits
a lot of receptions.
Yeah. And that it truly does. It limits Kieran Williams's floor. Every reason why they decided to draft Jarquez Hunter was because they needed more explosive plays on that Rams offense. It would not surprise me if Kieran Williams actually gets benched this year, because his efficiency metrics have gone way down.
I don't know about that one. That benching feels like a lot.
No way.
I'm just saying I think there's a better chance that Kieran Williams loses volume than Chase Brown is what I'm getting at.
Well, yeah, here's
the thing though. In 2023, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, both healthy for the majority of the season. Kyron Williams was still RB7. He didn't see nearly as much receiving work, and I think he only played 15 games. So
yeah, but he scored 16 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's
sure. Why can't he do that again? They get inside the red zone and hand him the ball
again. 100%. And that's what I'm saying. But you're banking on touchdown variance.
Sure,
variance, right? Like, I mean, he scored 31 total touchdowns the last 2 seasons.
Yep. And it's Sean. The thing is, it's Sean McVay. He's going to ride it until 100%.
And it's kind of like what I mentioned briefly at the beginning of the show when we were talking strategy. Like, I'm fine waiting on a Brian Robinson Jr. because I know what Cliff Kingsbury does when he's inside the 5. He gives it to the running back. Yep. That boosts the touchdown variance for Brian Robinson Jr. It's the same thing with Kieran Williams. They're going to do that. I mean, you have Devontae Adams to throw to. He's a big red zone guy. Puka Nacua has never been a big touchdown threat. He typically only scores about 6 every season. So really, the only person that Kieran Williams is going to fight for touchdowns is Devontae Adams. So there's that chance that, sure, he loads up on touchdowns. But if they're trying to infuse more big plays in this offense, that to me might limit his overall rushing output. Maybe not his touchdowns, but the rushing output. And he's only been around 1,100 rushing yards because we've already taken away the receiving output. So now you start chipping away at the rushing output. touchdowns can only inflate you so much. That's more the point that I'm getting at.
Sure. And I get what you're saying.
I fear a lot of my teams are going to look like Ashton Genty, Chase Brown, and Kieran Williams. That's what I'm fearing currently with how this is. I'm not mad about it, but
and then DeAndre Swift.
DeAndre Swift in the 17th round because nobody's going to draft him. Are you kidding me? DeAndre Swift is a rotational piece. Thank you. I was even thinking if not Kieran James Cook, fuck it, we ball. Yeah, I love how the running backs are setting up for me in my draft strategy personally this year. Running back, one of my favorite positions to talk about because there are some underrated guys that you can have in there and some extremely overrated guys that are inside the top 20 especially. Ladies and gentlemen, that is all she wrote for this week of Running Backs, Breakouts, and Sleepers. Nate, thanks for joining us, man.
I appreciate you, Nate.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's always fun to be on with Josh and Joe.
Yeah, where can we find you? Tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
You can find me on Blue Sky for the most part, but also on Twitter at Nate Polvogt. You can also find us on OptimusFantasy.com. I've got some stuff in the works, going to be coming out over the next couple of weeks. Can't say a whole lot about it, but in the meantime, check us out on YouTube, Optimus Fantasy. You can find us Optimus Fantasy on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Got a lot of video content coming out, shorts. We've got a great team, so we're just going to keep pumping it out and getting you guys ready for the season.
Yeah, they're coming out with a Transformer just based off their name.
Yeah, duh.
Yeah, that's where they got their name, guys. In case you're wondering, there's the long-term goal was create a real Transformer
that plays fantasy football.
Yeah, duh.
Yeah. Duh.
What else would it do? Drive? Be a car?
Well, that too.
No. It still plays fantasy football and then teaches on the weekends. Adult literature classes. Josh, anything else?
No, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, you can check out my RB Tiers article. It's live on the website, clubfantasyffl.com. I'm going to try to get the wide receivers tiers article out hopefully by Monday or Tuesday, since we're doing our wide receiver breakout and sleepers for next week, which, by the way, will be the 400th episode of No Punt Intended next week. Yep.
Wow.
I've done 400 of these pieces of shit with you, really? Can I miss? Can I skip? I'm busy. Oh,
I love you too, Joe.
gross. All right, so go on the website, read Josh's article, do the opposite of what he says. We all know that's how you win leagues. Go to Nate's website, listen to what he does. That's how you win leagues. And then come here and just listen to me. I mean, I'm not going to tell you. I put nothing in writing, so you don't know if I'm right or wrong about anything because you have to go back and watch videos to find that shit. So I was thinking about putting in writing in a tweet that Brian Burns will lead the league in sacks this year, but I'm still debating that topic and maybe waiting until August to do that. Last one from Gabriel. We drafting wide receiver or running back first? I know Josh's answer is it's going to depend where I am in the draft. So
that is true. I take value. I don't prioritize any position. So.
Yes. Nate.
Kind of the same, but more likely than not, I'm taking a wide receiver before I'm taking a running back.
Wow. Let me there's a 95% chance I'm taking a running back unless there was a point in time in the first round last year where it was like between picks 5 and 8. I didn't like the value at running back compared to what the receivers were. So I think one league I took Garrett Wilson. And then I went running back, second and third. But 95% of the time, I'm going running
Just
back.
Curious, Joe, if you have the first overall pick, are you taking Jamar Chase?
Saquon.
Really? You'll take Saquon? Even though the likelihood that he finishes his RB1 again after a 2,000-yard season is pretty minimal.
Oh, it's low. 100%. Correct. When's the last receiver that's finished back-to-back? Do we know that answer?
Antonio Brown,
okay.
I believe.
Probably. So a guy
he
that
did it 4 years in a row.
So a guy that hasn't had CTE. Name me that guy. Thank you. So nobody in recent memory that isn't coked up living in Miami has. And again, I think we brought this up on last week's show. If you forgot how good Antonio Brown was because of all the crazy antics he did, Antonio Brown was the greatest receiver of his generation.
Not
And
even
Julio
close.
Jones is a close second, but in reality, it's not that close. Antonio Brown was unbelievably dominant. It's insane how good he was. But yeah, like since Antonio Brown's dominant run, we haven't had anybody back to back. The same thing with Priest Holmes at the RB1. I'm aware of what's going to happen. I'm aware of what I'm doing, but I'm still expecting Saquon to run for 1,500 and probably 15 touchdowns. Like it's just that offense is just churning, and there really hasn't been much turnover on that offense.
Yeah,
so
20. Well, wow. Let's see. I think he did it 4 years in a row. Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt
2014,
it.
15, 16, and 17. Antonio Brown was the wide receiver.
Because he was fucking insane.
Yeah.
It was insane.
Yeah. I mean, since 2019, like you've had Cooper Kupp, you've had Devontae Adams, you've had Michael Thomas was 2019.
Gross.
CeeDee Lamb was in there, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. Like it's been Tyreek Hill, I think, was in there once. So yeah.
You don't see a lot of repeats, but it's not like those guys don't finish high. So I don't expect Saquon to finish 1. If I had to take a guess on who finishes 1 this year, man, I don't love any.
It's Bijan.
Yeah, it feels like the layup, but I think it's Bijan as well. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know why Ashton Genty finishing 1 just feels right, and it's only because Pete Carroll's the head coach. I don't know why, but it feels like Pete Carroll's gonna pull some bullshit and make Ashton Genty finish as the RB1 in fantasy football. I don't know why, just the vibe. But I would take Saquon Barkley in a heartbeat, because you want to know what I can do in the 2nd and 3rd round? I can find a guy that's going to finish inside the top 10 at the receiver position. I cannot find that at the running back position at that point in time, in my opinion. I just think it just dwindles up extremely, because by the back end of the 2nd in a 12-team league, you're drafting James Cook. Not saying I don't love James Cook, but I don't feel confident trotting James Cook out as my RB1. That's all I'm saying. So that's why I go there. I know that's a very unpopular opinion in today's NFL. All right. For Nate, Josh, Ryan, who is dead and gone. Not really. He's just not here. And myself. You can follow Club Fantasy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Club Fantasy FFL. The URL is clubfantasyffl.com. Always remember, fans, defense wins championships, offense wins fantasy football, and we will see you